Good evening, York. I'm super excited to be here. I speak all around the country, but Pennsylvania is where I come the most. And I just love the people that I meet here. And it seems like every year I do 2 or 3 events in Pennsylvania, so this is my first one for the year. And I'm excited to be here. Tonight, my presentation, I apologize if I'm a little under the weather. This is gonna be a different presentation than what you're used to, so just trust me here. And actually, as my audience, I'd like you to blindly trust me on this journey we're about to go on. I promise you, if you listen to what I say with an open mind, by the time you leave here tonight, you'll actually have some practical tools that you can use to transform stigma starting tonight. That being said, this is usually a 90-minute presentation, and I'm gonna condense it to about 30 minutes. And I'm from New York City, so this should be good for me, right? Also, I'm gonna be throwing a lot of things out, and at the end, I will tell you how to get more details, so don't feel like you missed something if you're trying to take notes or whatever. So we're gonna be talking about mental health. And when I use the term mental health, we're talking about 3 things: thoughts, feelings, and behavior. If one of those is having a challenge, you have a mental health challenge. Interestingly, we cannot see someone's thoughts. We often think we can perceive someone's feelings, but you can absolutely observe their behavior. We're also going to be talking about stigma. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, the definition of stigma is a mark of shame. But interestingly, stigma is also about thoughts, feelings, and behavior. Thoughts are stereotypes. You might have had a stereotype in your mind about what you might hear tonight at this event. Feelings are prejudice. Maybe every time I'm in the room, you get uncomfortable because I have mental health challenges. And behavior is discrimination. And people experience this in different ways in all walks of life. When I started to try to learn about stigma for myself, I actually found 2 reasons stigma exists. And check this out. One is that mental health challenges are confusing and frustrating. They are confusing and frustrating. And we as humans, we don't like to be confused. No. I was in the gym working out, and I was doing one of these push-up routines where you put your hands in different positions. I was trying to impress some girl, yeah. And so, of course, I ended up hurting my wrist, right? And so I totally played it off, left the gym, and went home to ice my wrist. And I knew that after a few days, if it didn't heal, it was either a sprain, a strain, or a broken wrist. Mental health challenges don't work like that. They are confusing and frustrating, and you end up usually discovering them through someone's behavior over time. The other reason stigma exists is what I like to call the law of the tribe. We are tribal people by nature, even those of us who don't like people in the room. And you can see where stigma begins with the tribe in kindergarten. If you watch kindergartners socialize, so let's just pretend like the 4 of us, we're in kindergarten. That'd be cool, right? And we're sitting around chatting. The way kindergartners learn who is in the group is by identifying who is not in the group. And they usually call that person the weird one. So let's just say the 3 of you are sitting there and you have Nike sneakers, but I have Pumas. They're gonna call me the weird one. And we bring this with us throughout our lives, and in every group we're involved in as adults, nobody wants to be the weird one. So you put that law of confusion and frustration plus the law of the tribe together, and that's why stigma exists. I'd like to dedicate this presentation tonight actually to someone special, my hamster. And he's dead, but he's been dead a few years. But we're still gonna dedicate it to him. My fond memory of this hamster, he was a dwarf hamster. And just for those of you that don't know hamsters, dwarf hamsters are like 2 to 3 inches. And they got their own mental health challenges, by the way, hamsters. But my little hamster had something in his eye. He had like one eye like this. And so I took him to the veterinarian. And this is my first trip to a veterinarian. And they're like doctor's offices for pets, just really small. And they're very expensive, by the way. I had to pay $100 to give him a physical, which was weighing him in a foam cereal bowl. But needless to say, I knew my hamster needed help on his eye. So the doctor or the veterinarian comes in and puts on rubber gloves and tries to restrain my hamster so he can look in his eye. And my hamster bit him. And like part of me was thinking, my hamster's cool, yeah. So he put my hamster down and he went out into the hallway and got a nurse. So now we have two grown adults trying to restrain my little 2-inch dwarf hamster. So my hamster ends up biting her. And she went into the hallway, and I actually heard her, she was talking smack about my hamster in the hallway. She's like, I'm not gonna go back in the room with that hamster. So part of me is thinking, my hamster's cool. The other part of me is getting really anxious, and I'm not sure why. And so finally we got 3 adults into the room to restrain my hamster, opened his eye, got him eye drops, and got him the help he needed. It was that day that I promised myself I would never, ever go to a veterinarian ever again. Because seeing that happen to my hamster reminded me way too much of the mental hospital. And every single day I have to worry about if I'm gonna have to go there again. When people ask me about my mental health challenges, I've been diagnosed with so many things that I don't even know where to begin. And even my current therapist, she refuses to diagnose me. I don't like that. But the only way I can describe it to you is by describing something I love dearly in this world. Food. I love food. If you want to be my friend, you gotta like food. I don't care if that's shallow. And I love to eat, and I love to cook when I'm home. I even bought a smoker for my apartment in New York City, so I could smoke my own bacon. Love that smoker. And so when you go into my real kitchen, let me describe it like this. My real kitchen has an oven, but not like a typical home Best Buy oven. I'm talking about an industrial strength Viking restaurant oven. And this thing has 4 burners on it. And typically on the top right burner, simmering in some oil, is my obsessive compulsive disorder. You said something to me on the way in and I can't stop thinking about it. Right over here on this burner is my anxiety. I do this all the time, but I'm really nervous up here. I have severe stage fright. And right over here on this burner is my anger. I can snap at any moment. And on this burner, there's a stock pot. And I can take the ingredients from each frying pan, put it into the stock pot, close the lid, and turn up the heat. That is a problem waiting to happen. And so my kitchen is kind of cool in some other ways. If I look right over there, there's a curved mirror and a slanted one right there, because everywhere I look, everything's about me, and it's distorted. But the best part of the kitchen, there is a huge flat screen TV over the oven with WWE style wrestling matches going on, with me fighting with the people in my head. If you're following me so far, the kitchen I'm talking about is not in my home, it's in my brain. And I'm stuck there every single day. It's really hard. It's really hard. It's been hard to make friends. It's been hard to date women. It's been hard with work. And like I said to you before, mental health is about thoughts, feelings, and behavior. For me, it started with behavior. I grew up in Long Island, New York, and my parents were really good parents. They loved me dearly. I have a younger brother, Jason, 3 years younger. They wanted the best for me, but I learned at an early age that I had behavior problems. I was told I was bad. I would punch my brother, get yelled at, always in trouble. So they started taking me to lots of doctors to get me help. Nothing really worked. Then my mom had a really good idea one day. She decided to put me in this place called Catholic school. You know this is not gonna go good, right? And you know, Catholic school was interesting. I had 2 years, 2nd and 3rd grade were good, but 4th grade, we all have had this experience in school where you have that one teacher that has a reputation that nobody wants to get. In my school, her name was Sister Pat, and she was known as this mean, evil nun. A few years ago, she passed away, and my brother went to an event for the school, and they were still talking smack about her, so it wasn't just me. But needless to say, from day 1 of 4th grade, I knew I was not gonna last with Sister Pat. And so I remember like it was yesterday, I was sitting in the back row, and typically the people who sit in the back have a reputation for being up to no good. No offense to the people sitting in the back. And I had a smile on my face. I smile a lot. And Sister Pat told me to wipe the smile off my face. And I said the thing you should not say to your fourth grade teacher. I said no. And you know how this goes down in class. Everybody goes, ooh. So Sister Pat then approached me and started yelling at me and speaking down to me, and I got really angry. And I said some things back to her that I'm not going to repeat on the stage. And then she tried to grab my arm and pull me out of my desk. And then I punched that woman as hard as I could. And I wasn't going back to that school after that. That night, Mommy and Daddy had a serious talk with me about respect and adults. And I told them, nobody has a right to talk down to me. And you know what? I'm 39 years old. Nobody has a right to talk down to me. I don't punch people anymore, though. But back to fourth grade. So I'm expelled within the first month of fourth grade. My parents needed to do something, so they put me in a public school where my uncle was the principal. They figured it'd be good for his career if he straightened me out. Good for me. Well, long story short, 3 weeks, several fights, and a desk mysteriously flying out of my hands in the direction of my teacher. I was expelled from that school. Man, it was frustrating. But the rest of fourth grade was the best school year ever. 1 hour of home tutoring every day. Love that year. And this woman, she would come to the house. You could tell she was scared of me. She didn't make eye contact. And anything I asked for, she would yes me to death and just quickly leave. Fourth grade was awesome. And then, the summer between fourth and fifth grade, Mommy and Daddy took me to see Batman. And for the Batman fans in this room, not talking about no Christian Bale, no Ben Affleck. I'm talking about Michael Keaton starring as Batman, and Jack Nicholson was the Joker. Interesting thing about Jack Nicholson, he's the star of a movie called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He and I have the exact same birthday, but that's a whole other conversation. But needless to say, they took me to see Batman, and I loved it, and they promised me if I behaved, I could be Batman or the Joker for Halloween. And at the end of the movie, the Joker actually plunges to his own death from a gargoyle. And I actually plunged shortly after seeing that movie, not to my own death, but into what we call a rage. And for those of you that don't know what a rage is, it's one thing to get angry. We all get angry. We all snap sometimes. But a rage is when you're angry for a long period of time. And I was just destroying things in my parents' home. They tried to restrain me. I didn't care. I would just fight back. I would punch. Whoops, sorry, my microphone here. Oh, from here. I would punch, scream, yell, curse. I was just out of control. And the next thing I realized, I was put into a mental hospital. And I just want to say, it's a scary place. And you could say all the nice things you want to a kid in a mental hospital. It's going to be okay. Other people struggle with this too. But you know what? In my mind, I knew I was crazy. And that's it. You try to make it nice. I knew I was crazy. And so I quickly learned a secret to getting out of the mental hospital. There's a secret, by the way. If you convince them you have coping skills, they let you out. And so after 3 weeks, I convinced them I had coping skills and they let me out. And then in fifth grade, I was put in special education. This was the one teacher I had in school. This woman I never messed with. I saw her recently. I still keep my distance from this woman. She scares me. 5 feet tall, I don't know, she just scares me. But needless to say, I found a way to annoy her sometimes. I would tap on my desk and make beats. I love making beats on my desk. And eventually they let me play drums in the drum class. It was so much fun to hold drumsticks for the first time. It made me feel really good. I got to make music with the band. But when I was out of the drum class, I started to experience a new thing I would later learn is called depression. Now remember what I said before, mental health challenges are confusing and frustrating, especially when you're a kid. And so I'm starting to experience depression to the point where it's physically painful. And like most of us, we just want a solution, right? That's why we're here tonight, right? We want solutions. So I had a wonderful solution. I said, I'm gonna get rid of this. I know how to get rid of my depression. I came home one day from school and went into the medicine cabinet and took all the pills for my medication because I knew it would end my life. I ended up passing out and my mom found me and rushed me to the hospital. And in one sense, it gets me very emotional to think about that because I'm grateful that she did that. I wouldn't be here. But I was so pissed off at her because I just wanted to die. And so it was a really interesting time. And after that, I did a little better. In 7th grade, I started to go backwards, though. I started to go into more rages at home. And I have to be honest with you. I don't like saying this, but I have to be honest with you as my audience. When you're in 7th grade and you're in a rage at home, that's not a rage. It's called violence. I was violent towards my family, to my younger brother. I was just out of control and didn't know why. I started doing a thing called self-harming. And self-harming is a big problem in schools, right? It's also a big problem in this room. There's a lot of you that self-harm. And I learned that there are 3 reasons why people self-harm. 3 reasons. Number 1, people self-harm because they think it takes away the pain. That's what I thought. I thought by harming myself, it would take away the pain. The second reason people self-harm, it can actually become an addiction. Each week that I travel to the United States of America, I have the honor of going into a drugstore and buying razors to shave this hand right here. And I don't buy the cheapy razors, I buy the ones that vibrate. I like those. And sometimes when I'm in the razor section, I linger a little too long, thinking I need to get some extra to bring with me just in case. And I have to quickly get myself out of there because self-harm became an addiction for me. The third reason people self-harm is they think it's cool. That one I don't understand. But back to 7th grade, I was put in a hospital this time for 6 months. I had to miss Christmas. Spend Christmas in a mental hospital. And they weren't buying my coping skills story this time. And eventually I got weekend passes. And the weekend passes were good. My family, they wanted to do family stuff, but I don't want to do none of that stuff. So they let me lock myself in my bedroom and play drums to Red Hot Chili Peppers and LL Cool J for the entire weekend. I would come out real sweaty and go back to the mental hospital on Monday. That was 7th grade. Between 7th and 10th grade, I'm proud to say that I was on a first-name basis with the local police and the emergency room people. I knew their favorite sports teams, their kids' names. I was constantly in crisis. And by the time that I finished 10th grade, I had been expelled from 3 schools, had several long hospitalizations, several suicide attempts, self-harm, violent at home. I didn't realize I was the poster child for an at-risk youth. All the while, my brother Jason is doing just fine. He gets good grades, he has friends. Nobody wanted to be my friend. I personally thought that I was going to get to quit school at that point, but my parents had other plans. My mother approached me that summer, and I want to say something about mothers because I know we have a lot of mothers in the room. I love mothers, but as a group, mothers are the absolute sneakiest people on the planet. And when they band together, they come together like little ninjas. And they get stuff done. And they do this thing. They give you this look called the mommy look. That's what I call it. It's this mommy look where you know they're up to something, but you're not sure what it is. So mommy approached me that summer with the mommy look. She said, "Hi, I want to talk to you." And I took a step away. I said, "What do you want to talk about?" She said, "I have a question." I knew this was a mommy trick. "What's your question?" She said, "What would make you happy?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Just answer the question with the mommy look." So I told her the truth. I said, "You know what? The only thing that would make me happy is playing the drums. I just want to play the drums all day." They had me on 7 different medications, taking me to all these doctors. And it didn't work. It didn't work. I just wanted to play drums all day. My dad was in the vicinity and he said, "Hell no, not in my house." But moms are sneaky. Moms are very sneaky. So my mother goes, "Thank you for telling me. Give me a week to figure this out." What? And by the way, I am the most impatient person on the planet. A week to figure it out. So that entire week, I wanted to know what was going on. I said, "Mommy, what's going on with the drum music?" She said, "We'll talk about it on Saturday." I said, "No, tell me!" She said, "Calm down. We'll talk about it on Saturday." I don't usually wake up on Saturday early, but this one Saturday, I was dressed at 6 a.m. And I came downstairs and I said, "What's going on?" And she told me that despite my track record, she found a performing arts high school that would be willing to accept me despite my record. And it was the first time in my life that I felt hope. The idea of getting to play drums all day. I'll never forget going in on the first day of school. Ladies and gentlemen, I was the same height that I am now. I was 50 pounds lighter, and I had hair. I missed that hair. I had some serious hair. And there I was, amongst my fellow artists, and people wanted to be my friend, and people wanted to make music with me. Until one day, a teacher spoke down to me, and I knew I was gonna snap. I knew it was done. All this hard work that I put in to get into school, this guy speaks down to me, I'm gonna snap. So the way a performing arts high school is set up, a lot of them, is they have individual practice rooms where people can practice drums or whatever you want to do. So I stormed out of class and went in the room to go practice drums. Can I play drums for you? I actually brought a drum. This is my djembe. Say djembe. I usually play a big drum set, but this was what I could take on Amtrak today. So I sat there in the room by myself just doing my thing. By the way, side note, when I started doing these presentations, my therapist and I worked out that I needed to bring this because it's my medication. So a lot of times if I jump on it, it's not really for your entertainment. It's because I need it. But back to high school. So the teacher comes into the room, says, Michael, you need to be in class. I said, I know, I'm doing my thing. He said, 15 minutes. And for the first time in my life, I calmed down. No police, no suspension, no expulsion, no call to the parents. I calmed down. About a month later, I decided I wanted me a girlfriend. And as you might imagine, I mean, some of the girls liked me, but most kind of kept their distance. And this girl that I liked, she just wasn't having it. And I didn't know what to do with those emotions. And I was in that same class, and I stormed out of class and went into the room to just go play drums by myself. That same teacher came in the room and said, Michael, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing my thing. He said 15 minutes, and then he asked me a question that changed my life. He said, can I hire you to play drums in my band? Oh my, at that moment the light bulb went off in my head. When I acted out the other way, I ended up at the mental hospital, suspended, expelled, or with the police. But when I acted out on the drums, people want to give me money. So, senior year, I approached my parents as a high school senior with the conversation no parents of a high school senior want to have when their other child is talking about law school. And I said, Mommy and Daddy, I want to be a drummer. And their heads went down like this. They were worried about me. But you know what? It was really interesting. My freshman year of college, all my friends were going out partying after the first semester. I couldn't go hang out with them because I was being flown around the country being paid thousands of dollars to play drums. The career worked, and I still drum to this day. I'm not really a drum set player on recordings like I used to, but I actually do corporate drumming with corporate America, and I have a company and a team of 7, and I get to watch adults in suits act like fools. I love it. And so, sorry, the mic here. And so that's what I do now, and drumming's been a part of my life, and it's still my medication, and I still struggle with mental health challenges. But I realized at another point in my life that stigma was also the issue for me, because even though I was doing better, I still, from time to time, struggled. And if somebody found out in maybe one of the bands, they might fire me. You know, if I was on a date with a woman, oh, The first 2 dates were great. Then the third date, she would ask the question, tell me about your childhood. At that point, she realized she was dating a psycho, and she was done. And I also didn't want to get help at certain points because I didn't want to be a person with mental health issues until I had a breakdown in 2011. And I realized at that point that I'm stuck with these challenges for the rest of my life. And in addition to taking care of myself, I needed to look at the stigma and how that was affecting me if I were to survive in this world and not die by suicide. I realized at that point that stigma is a three-part cycle. And this is why I came here today, so listen really closely to this. It's a three-part cycle that starts with shame. The shame leads to silence, and the silence leads to sabotage, social injustice, self-destructive behavior, and suicide. Again, I'm going to say it again, and I'll show you where to get this later. Stigma starts with shame. You feel ashamed because you're struggling, or you love someone who's struggling and you feel ashamed to talk about it. Shame leads to silence, and the silence leads to sabotage, social injustice, self-destructive behavior, and suicide. The reason me and my drum took a trip here today to York is because I have a solution for you. You have to break down each of those things that I just said. Stigma starts with shame. How do you transform shame? I actually looked this up on the internet. What's the opposite of shame? The opposite of shame is pride and honor. How do you get to pride and honor? Self-care. We talk about self-care a lot, but I did an article for Health Central called How to Practice Self-Care Without Feeling Selfish. And when you do an article, it looks good if you quote a study. So I found a little study, make myself sound smart. And I learned that of people with chronic health conditions, only 5% practice self-care. Ladies and gentlemen, that's statistically zero. It's a nonsense term we all throw out to each other, but no one's doing it. I actually outed a group of people on this. I was doing a conference in Illinois, 1,500 educators. It was a self-care conference for educators. They wanted to learn about self-care. And I was their big speaker, and it was in a beautiful hotel. They all want to learn about self-care. And I did something you should never do as a speaker. I lied to my audience. I told them, I said, ladies and gentlemen, I did the Mike Veny self-care assessment on you. And they were looking around like, what self-care assessment did you do? I said, no, I did a self-care assessment. It was very simple. A self-care conference, 1,500 people. That morning before my presentation, I went to the hotel gym. 6 to 7:30 a.m. 3 people in there. The night before at the bar, 300. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a difference between self-care and escape activities. And it's very important that you distinguish between the two. You have to look at it like this. Self-care are intentional things that you do to nurture your soul, and escape activities are just fun things you do to escape. And it's important that you're intentional about it. If you love someone who's struggling, the best thing you could do is practice self-care. I love you all dearly, but if you dare come up to me after this presentation and say, I put everyone else first. I don't have time for me. I'm a good person. No, you're not. You're selfish. Stop doing that. You've got to take care of you first, and other people will model it. For some oddball reason, when I started to take care of myself, I felt better about myself. Last night, actually, I was struggling with anger really bad. I saw my dad, family stuff, right? Saw my dad struggling with some anger, having a meltdown, looking for my therapist's phone number, thinking, I gotta be on stage talking about this tomorrow, oh geez. And I reminded myself that I have tools. And so at midnight last night, got in my truck, drove from Queens to Long Island, went to the beach, and meditated for an hour, because I knew that would calm me down and got me to a good place, so I could be here today and be present with you. Had I not, I don't know if I would have been able to show up today, to be very honest with you. It's really important that you practice self-care and become intentional about it. That's how you transform shame. That's simple. Silence. How do you transform silence? This is my favorite one. The way you transform silence is really simple. You just talk about it. Just talk about it. It's really interesting because would you have come to this event if we were talking about a campaign for the common cold? That'd be weird, right? We all have colds. We just talk about it. And we talk about colds and allergies in a normal voice, but we talk about mental health stuff in a quiet voice. Why do we do that? We have to normalize the conversation. I tried to do something to learn to normalize this, and I need you as a group to promise me that you won't do this. Say, I promise. Oh, no, say it like you mean it. Say, I promise. This was a very messed up experiment that I did. I hate the term mental illness. It makes me feel bad about myself. But I decided for an entire year to introduce myself to every single person I met and say, hi, my name is Mike, I'm mentally ill. I just wanted to see what would happen. Mommy and Daddy told me that, you shouldn't talk about this stuff. And everyone else was like, Mike, you have to keep it quiet. Every single person I met, hi, my name is Mike, I'm mentally ill. I'm a working professional. I'm a fundraiser. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Wall Street. I have to be at a lot of high-profile events and get a lot of money from CEOs to hire me. Every person I met, hi, I'm Mike, I'm mentally ill. It was really interesting that year, the responses that I got. A few people cried. Some people said, why are we talking about this? I'm mentally ill too. I got a lot of hugs, but I got hired for more work that year than I ever had in my life. And I got hit on by more women than I ever had in my life. It's not a pickup line, not a pickup line. But I was confused because something was wrong here. You're not supposed to talk about it. But I realized at that point, because I practiced self-care, was comfortable with myself, it really didn't matter what came out of my mouth. Because I was comfortable with myself, it didn't matter. I didn't care about others' responses because I felt good about me. And that was a really important lesson for me. I've got anxiety. I don't like elevators, especially elevators that don't fully stop on the floor. I don't like that. And I was on this tiny elevator, very tiny elevator, and this woman gets on the elevator next to me. I said, hi. She said, hi. I said, man, this building is sketchy. She said, I work here. Whoops. I said, what do you do? She said, I'm a therapist. I said, I'm mentally ill. Can I have your business card? You guys can laugh, but she's been my therapist ever since. I normalized it. If you're gonna be my friend, we're gonna talk about my mental health. I'm gonna show you the psychiatric records. We're gonna talk about it. You have to normalize it. Make it a loud voice. If you don't do it, you're the stigma. It's not something out there. You are the stigma. You have to see it that way. I had a group, the toughest group I had to ever speak to about mental health. I don't think they're ever gonna bring me back, by the way. Black pastors. They wanted a solution for their church. And I told them the truth. That if they want to help the people in their church, they all need to go out and get therapy. And tell everyone from the pulpit that they went to therapy. And you want to see, it was a real quiet, uncomfortable room at that point. But that's the reality. We have to be honest with it. So I encourage you just to start talking about it, keep it in the conversation. You don't have to go into detail. You can simply say, I'm struggling. But the idea is to make the conversation normal. The third thing you can do, how do you transform the sabotage, social injustice, self-destructive behavior, and suicide? It's really simple. You have to connect with each other more effectively. We have to do better at relationships. We suck at that. We really do. One of the things, I actually have a book, and I apologize, I think we have one copy, but I was gonna bring copies, but I ran out, and oh, she's got it right there. Can you hold that up? That's my book, Transforming Stigma, How to Become a Mental Wellness Superhero. In all seriousness, I was afraid to write it, but in April when it came out, it went to #1 on Amazon on children's health, teen health, and mental illness all in the same week. And we've just been selling out like crazy. And it has more details to this presentation in great detail, and it's helped a lot of people. So I encourage you to check it out on Amazon if you want. But that being said, one of the things that I address in the book is, how do you address someone who's struggling? It's all about connection. Well, don't want to give us advice. If I'm struggling and I'm your friend, don't give me advice. Don't tell me to cheer up. God loves you. No. There are two things you can say, and remember this forever. The first thing is, help me understand. And here's the key. Once you say it, shut up. Help me understand. Because what you do is you allow that person space to share what's going on their mind. The other thing that you can say, it's actually a question, you can ask them, how can I support you? And here's the key, shut up and let them speak. One of the challenges that we encounter with people who are struggling is we get caught up in just trying to help them so much that we don't give them the space to share. And I know this because I struggle every single day, and a lot of times I feel alone because nobody seems to want to listen to what's really going on. And it's very confusing for me. So that's number one. So learn how to connect with people better. The other thing is model healthy behavior in your relationships. Can you all stand up? You've got to model healthy behavior in your relationships. I'm giving you about 1 minute on the clock here, and I need you to get 3 hugs. Go for it. You can have a seat after you get your hug.
That was my third.
Oh my, I've turned you into a group of 8-year-olds. Oh my. Did that feel good? Why did it have to take a paid speaker to come in and tell you to do stuff like that? Not that you should be going up to people on the street and hugging them. That's weird. Don't be creepy. But the important thing to remember is be intentional about doing healthy things with people. We spend too much time on these mobile devices. We don't connect with each other. It's really, really important to do. In closing, I just want to share a few things. Number one, if you'd like to get in touch with me, I actually have a way of doing that. You simply text the word drum to that number, 38470. You can get on my mailing list. You can get my contact information. I also have a business card out there. I do a lot of speaking. Would love to come to your organization. And I do drumming with adults for team building and professional development. So we could do that too. And in closing, I want to share with you just something really important that I've learned on my journey. And if you take nothing else from this presentation, take this. My mom was the hero of my story when she found me in that school. I'm grateful for her doing that. 2 years ago, my mom died of cancer, and it's been hard. It's been really hard for me. And bear with me, I'm just gonna have to sit down for a moment while I say this. So if I get a little emotional, but she died, and as a rule, because I'm a public figure and I'm on TV and stuff a lot, I don't ever talk about my family or say anything bad about them. But I created a new rule that if you're dead, you're fair game. Sorry, Mommy. And you know, from her death, I learned that my mom was not available to me emotionally when I was younger. She didn't have the social skills to teach me how to process emotions. So when I got to school and I had uncomfortable feelings, all I knew how to do was act out of survival. And I learned through therapy that there are 3 devils. 3 devils. One is called anger, the other is called grief, and the other is called fear. Anger, grief, and fear. And John Terrell, who's one of my therapists, I got permission to share this with you, that when you take care of yourself and talk about things and connect with people, the devil of anger has a secret angel. That when you process your anger, it turns into wisdom, decisiveness, and passion. Grief, if you don't deal with it, becomes depression. But if you sit with it and process it, it becomes joy. And fear, anxiety. But if you sit with it, the secret angel is courage and vision. I encourage you to think about that. Thank you for being a wonderful audience, and I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to speak in front of you. Thank you.